Hello everyone, welcome to today's class, and in this class we are covering factors which governs the nature and extent of wounds. So in previous classes we have completed the injury, legal definition, medical definition and different types of injuries, which was medical, legal and medico-legal. So as I told you all earlier that medical and legal when combined is called medico-legal, and we have seen the mechanism of infliction of wound or injury. Okay, so now we have few factors which governs the nature and extent of wound. So if we classify different types of injury, okay, if you want to classify injuries and if you want to classify different types of wounds, then we can classify on the basis of factors which governs the nature. Okay, so we have different nature of wounds, right? So these nature and these factors will greatly affect on the types of wounds we will be getting on the skin and on the other tissues or objects. So here we have four different types of factors which majorly governs the nature and extent of wounds. First we have the nature of the object. Nature of the object, or you can say instrument which causes the wound. Okay, so different instruments. So here instruments means the weapon a person is using. For example, if I am using a gun, okay, so bullet will be the instrument which is causing the hurt or which is causing the particular wound. If I am using a hammer, okay, so here instrument is hammer, and the hammer will inflict different types of wound and it will apply different type of force on the skin and different tissues. Here we can use knife as well. So we have bullet, and then we have knife, then we have hammer, then we have axe, or we have chiseled knife, and then we have different other instruments which is really very like blade. Okay, so these are different instruments which will cause the wound, and different instrument will inflict different type of injury on different tissues again. So we have multiple differences, like we different instrument, different tissues and different types of wounds, and these different wounds we will classify later. And this is the first factor, you can say. And then the other factor is amount of energy which is discharged during impact. Again, really very important. In mechanism of infliction, we have already seen that the amount of energy which is transferred to the tissue, which is transferred to the particular cell, will affect greatly. So here the amount of energy, as I told you earlier, that if the amount of energy is lesser as compared to the tensile strength, then that person can sustain that injury. If the energy which is transferred to the particular cell and which is transferred to the particular tissue is greater than the extent of tensile strength, and most of the tissue they do not have tensile strength at all, so that's why I'm saying different tissues will have different tensile strengths, and the amount of energy matters a lot. So this is the second factor. Then we have third factor, which is the condition under which the energy is discharged. So again important, the condition in which the particular energy is transferred to that particular skin and which is transferred to the particular tissue. Then we have fourth factor, which is the nature of affected tissue. Important again, the nature of affected tissue. What type of tissue is this? So we have categorization here like the skin, okay, the subcutaneous tissue. So subcutaneous tissue is just beneath our epithelial layer of tissue, and then we have the muscles, then we have the bone, then we have the body fluids, and then we have gases. Okay, so these are the area of affected areas, you can say. So in the skin, the different type of energy transfer will cause different wounds. The different type of weapons will cause different wounds. The subcutaneous tissue again will have different characteristic feature. So here we can include the law of individuality. So what law of individuality says? It says that every man-made and natural thing will have their own characteristic features, and same it applies here as well. The skin will have its own characteristic feature. The skin will have individual characteristics, feature which we can clearly see. Then we have subcutaneous tissues. Again, the law of individuality applies here as well. The muscles will have different type of wounds and injury, you can say. And then bones. So in most of the like criminal cases, you might have seen like not so recent like, it's not recent anymore, but we can say Shraddha Walker murder case. So in Shraddha Walker murder case, they are suspecting the murder weapon was some sort of axe or some sort of like wood cutter, right? So the bones are really very hard things of human body, and we cannot cut them easily. And that like the suspect, I will say suspect, that after is a suspect, and that person cannot dislocate bones, and that person cannot break bones easily. No one can break bones easily, and the bones are not easy to cut as well. So we need some specific type of instrument and force and some sort of energy to cut the bone up or to break the bone up. Then we have body fluids. Body fluids, it's like the basic body fluid is blood, of course, and then we have gases. So these are some important factors which affect the nature and extent of wounds. So first we will, okay, then we have application. So what is the application of this? So different wounds may be caused from equal forces. Okay. So by looking at the like injury, we cannot like measure the force, right? But most of the time, wounds are caused from the equal force when applied to the same region of the body in different circumstances. So in different circumstances, equal forces creates different wounds. Okay, so as I told you that like different, of course, different tissues will have different injuries, and different regions of the body like with equal force will have different injuries. Like it depends on the different circumstances again. Sometimes minor forces may produce severe wounds. This point is really very important, and this is to be noted. Then sometimes minor forces may produce severe wounds, and it totally depends on it totally depends on the type of tissue, and it totally depends on the place where the wound is inflicted. Relatively severe force may cause minor wounds. So sometimes we might think that the force was great and the injury will come out even greater, but it did not happen. So sometimes it is like we can say that minor forces sometimes create severe wounds, and severe forces might create minor wounds. Because of these, often on scientific grounds, it is not possible to give an opinion, right? So if we talk about like science, or if we say some statement on the basis of scientific ground, we might not be able to make an opinion as the amount of force which must have been used to cause a particular wound. So we cannot say if the type of like transfer of energy is like this, so this type of wound will be created. So we cannot, on the scientific ground, we can hypothesize everything, of course, but on the basis of science and on the scientific ground, we cannot say that this type of force and this type of blow will end up with some sort of wounds or injury. It is also not important to predict the amount of damage. Same thing, right? Here we have seen that it is not predictable on the opinion, on the opinion on particular type of wound, and same happens here. It is not possible to predict the amount of damage, right? It is like really very hard to predict the amount of damage which could be caused by the application of certain forces. Clear? The doctor should give his opinion in board qualified broad qualified terms, sorry. So sometimes injuries of internal organs do not show any signs of external damage. Yes, this happens a lot. Sometimes we think that the person looks completely normal and that person might not have any injury, but sometimes you might have heard about this, that the person have internal bleeding, that person had some internal damage, right? So internal damages sometimes do not show up on external body. Like, that's why it is like hard to say that if a person looks completely fine from the outside, nothing is wrong in inside, it can happen. So these are the application why we are studying the factors which affects the nature, like these factors which affect the nature of injuries. So first